as faculty to be able to teach all of you, and this is one way that we're able to, sort of express our admiration for the accomplishments of our students. So the way this is going to work is that I'll just serve as the host to kind of keep things moving along, but a faculty member will be introducing each award nominee. I should say that oftentimes this was very competitive to determine which faculty member would get to introduce each of these nominees, because there were multiple, everyone who is here was nominated by multiple members of the department for an award. The faculty member will speak for a bit, and then we always like to hear from the student recipient. You don't have to give anything particularly long, but if you want to say a word or two, that's always welcome. So we're going to start out with the Spiro Award, which went to Anuna Meme, and Professor Wills is going to be introducing her.
Thank you, Professor Johnson, and congratulations, Anuna. I'm looking for you on. Oh, there you are. I have the great privilege, not only of going first, but of being able to present the Spiro Award to Anuna Meme. Because of the award ceremony, I had the opportunity to go back and look at, listen to, read all the things that Anuna produced in American Dream and Reality last semester, when I was very fortunate to have her in that class. And I wish I could have her in every class. And I just want to say to everybody who's going to have Anuna going forward, you are lucky, lucky, lucky. I just want to say a few things. When Anuna first approached me, so the students in the class did a COVID-19 project where they documented their experiences with COVID. And then they did a final meditation in the class. They also did a bunch of journal entries. All of Anuna's were deeply insightful, as usual. But Anuna came to me, and one thing to know about Anuna is very funny, for starters. She has a great sense of humor. She's also extremely focused and knows exactly what she wants to do. So she came to me and said, would it be possible to do a PowerPoint presentation for my COVID project? And then later, would it be possible in my final meditation, rather than writing a traditional paper, if I could actually do a podcast about everything I've learned and experienced in the class? And at first, I didn't know Anuna very well at first, and I was a little hesitant. Oh, I wasn't sure about a PowerPoint presentation, a little less so even about the potential of a podcast. But I had read what she had written throughout the semester and thought, well, if I can take a chance on anyone, I'm pretty sure it's Anuna. So the COVID project was a PowerPoint presentation. But it was a 25-page PowerPoint presentation, complete with voiceovers, photography, video, stories that wove her own experiences with all the readings and discussions we had had all semester. It was gorgeous. Then the podcast for her final product for the semester. It's 45 minutes. And it's a glorious 45 minutes that obviously she had to do all this writing in order to produce it. But it is a beautiful walk through every discussion we had in class, her insightful contributions, which she never credited to herself, but it was all there. And then, as part of that final meditation, the students were asked in the class to maybe make a few comments about some of the other students' COVID reflections. And this is where you really get to know Anuna Meme. She's funny. We all know she's really, really smart. She's brilliant, in fact. But it's her insights and what she carries with her with such grace and such generosity. We love the award ceremony because we're not only celebrating excellent students and their scholarship, but everybody who's receiving an award, and I'm happy it starts with Anuna, Everybody who's receiving an award tonight is also an amazing human being with talents and skills beyond just the academic realm. They bring it all to bear in the classroom. She's also extremely honest, candid, thoughtful. She ended her podcast after she wove all the readings, all the discussions. One time she zoomed into class from the hospital. She didn't miss class. She was at the hospital because she had a family member who needed her, but she was present, she was there. And what really stood out in her final meditation is the generosity of spirit and the credit she gave to her colleagues in class for their deep insights in what they had produced. And it made the final product just the most amazing and special piece of work I've received in a really long time from a student. She talked about in all of her work that one of the hardest things to do is to shift people's perceptions about colorism, racism, sexism, but that she believes that that's where we all need to start, is by having deep conversations, listening to each other. She's just, Anuna, you're just a joy to have in class, to visit with whenever the opportunity arrives. I can hardly wait till I can actually see you in person. She finished it, she finished her final meditation with a quotation saying, "If you want change, it begins with you." And she wants to be a teacher, and I just feel like the students are going to have the privilege of having her for a teacher, are going to grow, and they're going to be fortunate to have this young woman who is wise beyond her years. And Anuna, we're all so grateful that you left LaGuardia Community College and came to Brooklyn College, even in the middle of a pandemic. And congratulations on this very well-deserved award. And thanks to your family and friends for supporting you.
Thank you very much. Oh my God, I'm so emotional. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you, Professor Wills. So our next award is the Goldstein Award to Stephen, and Professor Troyansky is going to be doing the introduction.
So, Stephen, there you are. I see you. Okay. Yeah, as others have said, this is a great day, and I look around and I see students. Many students I've taught, and some I'm teaching now, and I have lots of good things to say about so many of you, but today I get to talk about two, and one of them is Stephen Vivaces, who's a history and education double major, and I think a very, very promising teacher. He was in my colloquium last semester on France and the world, which was kind of a dizzying course since it went from cave paintings to the present. And it was basically a kind of global and non-nationalist approach to French history. And Stephen wrote a really good paper on utopian socialism and colonialism. And I think it began with an assumption that he made about how, well, surely these two things don't coexist. And yet, of course, they do. And there were ways in which he was able to show connections between the Saint-Simonians and French efforts in North Africa. And it ended up being a really, really good paper. At the same time, he was one of the most active discussants in that class. And I think it was in that role that he showed that he's going to be a really good teacher, because not only were we reading a lot of different things and discussion was necessary, but he also responded well to other people's comments, their presentations, and it showed that he'll know how to handle a class and be a really supportive and generous teacher. So it's a huge pleasure for me to make this award. If we were here, I would hand you an envelope, but I can't do that in cyberspace.
Well, thank you very much. This was a very nice surprise. I'm very grateful for the fact that I've been able to be a history major at Brooklyn College, and I look forward to using what I've learned here in the future. So thank you very much.
So our next two awardees are going to be introduced by Professor Stern. So I thought we could start with the Union Award to Nick.
Okay, thank you. I didn't know I was up so quickly, but this is really a pleasure because Nick is a student I have taught for several semesters now. We sort of tallied it up. He suffered through 5 classes with me. Ever since he took the survey, Shaping of the Modern World, in fall 2019, I think. And it was already then in a class of 120 students that Nick immediately stood out, which is not such an easy thing to do. I think it took energy and purpose, but it was very clear that he became sort of this driving force that turned a course that was a survey into a really serious diachronic examination of the past. And he really sort of galvanized students around him to make it a much more energetic and active course. And for that, I was really, really grateful. But this is something that persisted through all the classes he's taken with me, whether it was a course on religion and violence, where he wrote a great paper on the Doolittle raid, even in ancient Jewish history, which was a course he said he didn't intentionally enroll in, but he sort of stuck it through. And in this semester's colloquium. And his writing has always been excellent. And he continually and consistently challenges the status quo, whether it's in our readings, whether it's in sort of class conversation. And he consistently sort of keeps me on my toes, which is a very, very good thing. But it was really this semester where I appreciated not just Nick's sort of acumen and seriousness in the classroom, but some of you already knew this, but I did not know about his musical background. So in the class this semester in the colloquium in the history of religion, religion through the senses, I realized that he was really an asset in the course. So when we started thinking about sensory processing, the history of sound, acoustics, and religious experience, this is something he'd already thought about quite a great deal. And all the students and I have been able to learn a lot from him. And this is something that everybody will reiterate today, and Professor Will said before, but one of our greatest experiences in the classroom is to learn from you, our students. And I think so much of what we here today is about the degrees to which we learn from all of you. But this semester, it's really worked so well for everybody. So I expect he's going to continue to push himself further as he continues to ask challenging questions about anthropological theory, history, religion, and human experience. He's really pushed me to the limit on Bourdieu, but it's good for me. It's very good for me, and I'm sure he'll do the same thing for himself in the future. I'm sure he's going to filter all of these interests really successfully in his potential future as a teacher of music and the history of music and musicology. And I look forward to his video essay on the history of the drone, not like the drone in the sky, but the sound, not the device, right? In religious music through time. So I'm really happy to present him with this award and look forward to seeing what he does in history and religion in the semesters ahead.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
All right, and Professor Stern has another for the Bloom Award.
Okay, so this is for Dvora Shafran. And I'm sure that all of you have experienced the fact that COVID years are sort of like dog's years. I'm sure people say this all the time. So if that were true, I feel like I've known Dvora for at least half a decade, but actually I've only known her for 2 semesters. So when I met her for the first time, she started in my ancient Jewish history class last fall, which was, of course, for everyone, our first semester sort of exclusively on Zoom. And it was really amazing because between office hours and her participation in the class, I felt like I had just sort of known her forever. She became a really important driving force in the class. She's energetic, thoughtful, reflective, always willing and able to draw connections between the world we inhabit and more arcane discussion of topics from the ancient world, whether it's about ancient tomb decoration or the physiology of smell. She's one of the students who makes classes just run really well. She responds to other students, accelerates the discussion. She makes my job feel really easy. And again, she creates this feeling of like buoying or support for students to sort of learn from each other. And I will say that if anyone else is here from the colloquium that she's taking this semester with me, the same one on religion through the senses, I don't want them to feel bad, but I think she produced one of the best breads this semester using the Pompeian bread recipe and Pliny the Elder starter. I mean, I couldn't taste it, but I could just go by her description of the sense of smell. That's why we were doing this. We wanted to see what bread smelled like according to these recipes. She definitely put my efforts of doing the same thing to shame. So I feel like I've been able to get to know her much more. Strangely enough, I'm sure we felt this too, that sometimes students, we get to know them a little bit more during our office hours from home over Zoom. And it was only then that I sort of learned through the year about her amazing trajectory in the field of nursing, the degree to which she spent years volunteering for the college and in the world outside to make sure that more people have more equitable access to resources, both environmental and medical. She's an exceptional person, a person who's sort of devoted to the society around her, as well as an exceptional student. And the world is really lucky that she's training to be a nurse. We need more people around like her who are obviously really competent in critical roles that have to do with public safety, but she will do so with a degree of thoughtfulness and certainly informed by her studies of history. So I'm just sad that I won't get to teach her again after the semester, but I'm thrilled to present her virtually with this well-deserved award.
Thank you so much, Professor Stern. I have to say that in terms of ease with the transition to online learning, I'd have to say that I really appreciated how much you've done for us and for the my class, and in general the entire department, history department. You all have been so receptive and kind and understanding in this troubling time. So I just want to say thank you so much, everyone, and especially for this award, but for everything you guys do.
All right, so our next award are going to be the Lions Awards. Then we have 2 recipients of the Lions Award. So why don't we start with Professor Mancia and Kanadia.
All right, hello everybody. So Kanadia Lucien was at first just a name in a black Zoom box on my screen for the first part of my history of childhood class last fall. And all I knew about her was that she was diligently in attendance. And then I got her first paper and I was like, whoa, she's a inventive and critical thinker and an excellent writer. Who is this person? And then slowly over the course of the semester, the chat in the Zoom chat in our class became filled with her insights. And eventually she unmuted herself to contribute to our conversations in class. And the contributions by Kanadia always require me to do a double take, whether they're in writing or in the chat or in Audible, because her take is always surprising and always cuts to the heart of a historical issue in an enigmatic and inventive way that I have not thought of before. So her paper last semester on the gendered moral instruction implicit in Louisa May Alcott's Little Women evidenced a political and historical voice that I see even more regularly this semester in our class on gender and sexuality in Europe before 1800. And Kanadia's particular gift is that she can shift from the very specific to the very general with ease in her writing, and makes everyone feel like what she's writing is both deeply rigorous and also deeply relevant. And my suspicion is that hers could become a critical voice that could bridge many communities and cut to the quick in many issues in broader society in the future. So I encourage you all to remember her name and look out for her byline or her author page in the coming years, because I suspect that it will be out there and will be wonderful. So congratulations, Kanadia. Well deserved.
Thank you so much. That was lots of high praise. I really appreciate the award. Thank you again.
And Professor Rossen will be introducing Ian for the next Lions Award.
I've been fortunate to work with Ian Azinga in 2 different courses that go all the way back to the before times. I've also worked with Ian this past fall through the Mellon Undergraduate Research Program, in which he produced a wonderful primary source-based paper on urban railroads in 19th century Brooklyn. And this semester, he's helping me with research on my current book project as a Kurtz Research Fellow. I have found myself repeatedly impressed over the last 2 years or so by Ian's insatiable curiosity, his sharp mind, and in particular, his astonishing work ethic. Ian has also kept very busy outside of his academic work. He's written for the Vanguard. He has served as the secretary for the Historical Society. He has served as an editor of Clio. He's worked as a research assistant for the Brooklyn College Archives. And Ian once shared with me the personal philosophy that I think explains a lot of his success. And the philosophy is simply this: apply for everything. That's a really ambitious philosophy, but I think it has served him incredibly well. Ian, congratulations on receiving the Lions Award. It is much, much deserved.
Thank you for those kind words. It's really humbling to see all these faces that I wish I could be like a little bit closer to. But it's been tough this semester, but it's really great to be here. Thank you again for the award. I hope to see everyone in the semesters to come.
Right, so our next award is going to be the Goldstein Award. We have star MA students in our program, and then we have Salima Josie, and she's going to be introduced by Professor Sengupta.
I just want to say bravo to all our students, and thank you to everyone who's here. It's so good to see you and hear to what Ian said. Let's hope we're all face to face next year. So every now and then, a student reminds us why we continue to love teaching at under-resourced public institutions, right? She keeps us focused on the mission of an institution of higher learning devoted to both knowledge creation and service to the larger communities of which we are citizens. And the pandemic has reminded us, of course, as nothing else, that these communities extend from the intensely local to the intensely global. Salima Josie is one such student. She is an absolute delight to teach and, more importantly, to learn from, because through sheer grit, she overcame hardship to arrive at the threshold of graduation from Brooklyn College's master's degree program in history with an absolutely superlative record. And she did this while raising an adorable little girl who sometimes sat in on portions of our class. So I met Salima last spring, not at Brooklyn College, but at the Graduate Center when she took a doctoral seminar that I was teaching on comparative slavery. And so she enters this intellectual milieu in which many of our more theory-oriented students were offering post-structuralist readings of the assigned texts. And I do have a confession to make. I mean, they were amazing, brilliant, wonderful students who had actually read way more theory than I had done. And I could always rely on Salima to inject historical context of place, of time, of politics into points that others made about connections between language, knowledge, and power in the construction and reception of a given text. So as a high school teacher, Salima is particularly interested in the ways in which historical knowledge circulates from the archives through the pages of academic history books into the public sphere. And so this concern has shaped her focus on public history. Salima's master's thesis brings together her interests as a high school teacher devoted to innovative pedagogy on the one hand, and an aspiring professional historian committed to archival research on the other. So please do come tomorrow to listen to her talk about her thesis. She is exploring how interpreters at Colonial Williamsburg's Living Museum translate professional histories and historiographies of enslaved women in their institutions, slavery-related presentations, performances, and uses of material culture. And moreover, she examines how the education resources that such museums create find their way into high school curriculums. So Salima hopes to build on this work at the doctoral level. And one thing I'm certain, this is not the last you will hear of her. The path to her future and that of public history, with Salima in it, glow with the promise of possibility. Congratulations, Salima. The stage is yours. I'm so proud of you.
Thank you. I'm super shy. So yeah, no, I really appreciate it. I love history and I've loved studying history at Brooklyn College. And every semester has been a new opportunity for me to learn more and grow more as a teacher and a student. So thanks.
So our most famous chair of the department was John Hope Franklin, a figure whose lessons continue to resonate in contemporary society, and so it's just wonderful that this year's Franklin Award winner is Richard Thomas, and just utter joy to teach, and he'll be introduced by Professor Banerjee.
Hello, everyone. It's wonderful to see so many known faces and to celebrate this really, really, heartwarming evening, particularly when the part of the world I am from is really, facing a major challenge in all different ways. And I am in a very heavy heart, although none of my immediate family members are affected, but I'm getting news every day, every second of losing friends, family. And I know several of you are from that part of the world. So my heart goes out to all of you, who are kind of under that, going through that tremendous agony and trauma that's unfolding in that part of the world. But that also shows, which I told my students, although this is not the appropriate time to say this, how politics is so closely married to pandemic and this kind of fiasco, social and cultural. So it's a varies. I cannot see Richard, however, but anyways, my felicitation for Richard Thomas is really distinct from any other awardees I introduced in the past. Those of us who have had Richard as a student can vouch that having him in a class is a privilege and a pleasure. I have had Richard in several classes, and he served as a source of inspiration and a challenge for me. Richard is someone who always thinks ahead of the class and ahead of time. I was often intrigued by the level of his preparedness. He always came to class having read everything that was assigned. And moreover, he had the superb ability to discern what lay ahead. Uh, Going into the class, I knew that Richard would pose the most searching and interesting questions that would get the class discussion going. So, you know, what a relief it is to walk into a class when we know there will be a smooth discussion or questions raised that will make all of us think. But Richard is also a source of challenge. He has an uncanny insight into the operations of colonial governments. His acute observation on the agrarian economy of India and the insidious role of colonial politics often gave me a pause and left me feeling, wow, Richard, you do have an astute assessment of a ravaged colonial economy about which I teach and British policies in the distant land. To my mind, I often reckoned that perhaps this special skill that Richard had came from his own experience, imagination, and empathy. In my class, I always talk about empathy and imagination because that's how we could only, we all know that that's the only way we can reconstruct the distant past that we all study. So perhaps Richard's background in the Marine Corps gave him the critical understanding of the army and the military that a social historian like me oftentimes lacks. So I must admit at the same time that I often had to bridle Richard's curiosity by postponing the discussion to future classes and readings. For the papers Richard wrote for my classes, Richard and I often embarked on searches for topics less explored. So, just to share one example, one such topic was assessing W.E.B. Du Bois's historiographical intervention in the writing of African American history. Working with Richard is always a learning experience. To me, he's a student teacher from whom I learned a lot and with whom I share notes all the time. Of what I said about Richard will make sense if I share with you Richard's unique background. Richard was born the same year when the case of Brown versus Board of Education resulted in the Supreme Court decision to end legal segregation in American public education. Richard comes from a unique family background. From his father's side, he comes from a family that was freed from slavery several generations ago. His paternal grandfather was freed from slavery at the age of 16 in 1865. We all know the importance of that year. His mother taught him how to read between the age of 3 and 4 years old, when he was only 3 or 4 years old. The first novel that Richard read was Les Miserables when he was only 8. And Richard exclaims, and I quote, I still find it extraordinary that my mother, who never finished high school, was able to teach me how to read before grade school. And I was able to understand and complete a novel that was 1,462 pages long. So it's a really fitting tribute to his mother. And I hope wherever she is, she's enjoying, he deserves this tribute from his son, from her son. So Richard was also among the first group of Black children who integrated into the New York City public school system in 1962. And he attended schools in majority white neighborhoods from the 3rd grade through his high school. There is another interesting dimension of Richard's story of how he came to history. Richard is a former member of the Black Panther Party, between 1969 and 1971. The autobiography of Malcolm X that Richard read at age 11 transformed his life. At that tender age, when Richard had hardly any sense of the systemic racism prevalent in the American system, the autobiography helped him fathom the hostility that he faced when attending a public school in white neighborhoods. The autobiography also inculcated in Richard an historical awareness and a love for history. His love for history was further cemented by reading J. Rogers' great novel, Superman to Man. So this is all how Richard built on in his past resources, and that's how he came to pursue history. Currently, Richard is a disabled veteran. He served in the United States Marine Corps, and as a part of our student body in Brooklyn College, he enjoys every moment of attending school. And Richard further looks forward to attending graduate school. So please welcome Richard Thomas.
Yeah, I want to thank you very much. As a former member of the Black Panther Party, one thing I can do is run my mouth. So I might be a little bit longer than the other students. I want to thank Professor Benji. As she said, I took 3 of her classes, and I always was impressed with the love she had for her mother, her country. When she took and explained into detail some of the crimes that was committed by the East Indian Company and the whole history up until 1848, you get a clear understanding how much she loves the subject matter, what she deals with. I also like to take and basically say that another professor that I took 3 courses with, Dr. Johnson, I was always impressed with Dr. Johnson because as far as I'm concerned, he has a photogenic memory. He never really took and said anything, but I've never seen Professor Johnson with any notes, any books, and he can talk the whole class extremely proficiently and clear. So as far as my mother was an extraordinary woman. Although she only went up, I say probably to the 8th grade, my mother also had a photogenic memory. And she always wanted her children to have the best whatever this country had to offer. One thing that she took and told me when I was extremely young, she said, Richard, as long as you get a good education and you understand your identity, no human being can ever take and push you in a direction that you don't want to go. When I was inside my first class in kindergarten, my kindergarten teacher was Miss Boyce. And when she found out that I was able to read, she took me to the principal, I say after my first 2 months in school, and she told the principal that this child does not belong in public school. So what happened at that time when I was inside a kindergarten, they took and arranged for me to go to the Board of Education on J Street, and I took a battery of tests. And after I finished taking these batteries of tests, they had told my mother that they wanted to put me in a particular school. At that time, they called it for young geniuses. For some strange reason, my mother did not trust that, and she refused to take and put me inside that particular school for gifted children. Instead, she decided that I would be bussed out to Flatbush to first integrate the school system. Now, even to this particular day, my mother is still alive. And she said that she regrets that she never allowed me to attend that school because she felt that my life would have been so much more advanced if I had went to that particular special school. So right now at the age of 90, she is so happy that I'm about to graduate next month in May because my mother always considered me to be an historian without credentials. She used to always tease me. She said, Richard, you read so much, you know so much about history, but you don't have no credentials. So when I decided to use the GI Bill to return back to college, at the time I was 63 years old. And I never really feared that it would be hard for me to compete on an academic level because I've been reading history books my whole life. But the main thing that, I want to say, I want to go back to Professor Johnson. I have two particular heroes from the Reconstruction period, Thaddeus Stevens and Charles Summers. And one particular afternoon when he was talking about Charles Sumner had got a cane on side the Congress floor, I said, well, I know that although he's extremely intelligent, he's also wise. I was really impressed when he had talked about the caning because a lot of people don't really know about the caning incident. Thaddeus Stevens is another person that's my hero, and I always took and felt that most of the policies that they instituted during the Reconstruction period, if it had been allowed to stand, this country would be so much more advanced and better as far as race relationships. There's no reason that we should have had to go through the Jim Crow period because everything was in place to make this country an equal place for everybody right after the Civil War. So therefore, I just want to say I appreciate the history department and I enjoyed every particular moment. What I took and did, I created an archive of every particular class that I took in the 4 years. I still have all the notebooks. I have everything on side the computer. So I intend to use that when I attend graduate school. So thank you very much for the honor.
Thank you, Richard. I think I could speak for Professor Banerjee we're the two who probably had the privilege of having you the most. We're going to miss very much having you in class. It's always been just a great pleasure. All right, so our next award is the Rudolph Award to Radwan, and Professor Troyansky is going to introduce.
Okay, so Radwan Faraj is taking a second class this semester. He's been a wonderful student. He's an excellent writer. When I first looked at my role last semester in the French Revolution course and saw, oh, he's a sophomore, I thought, is he ready for this? Well, he was more than ready for it. He's a wonderful writer, great participant in class discussion. In the French Revolution class, he wrote a fine paper on the Vendée and revolutionary violence, and in a really sophisticated way got at the problem of what's revolution, what's counter-revolution, what do these terms mean, and so on. This semester, he's in my course on Love, Death, and Magic in Europe, 1500 to 1800, and he's writing on gender and witchcraft, and he's put together a terrific bibliography, and I'm looking forward to seeing what he does with it. But I know what he did with the most recent assignment, which was a comparison. Some of my colleagues will know these books, a comparison of Carlo Ginzburg's Night Battles and Lyndall Roper's Oedipus and the Devil. And these are two very different approaches to early modern witchcraft. And what Radwan did that was so wonderful was he combined them, he weaved them together when the tendency for many students is to do one, then to do the other, and then slap on some comparison, but it was all very well integrated. And so that was a sign of a maturing scholar. He's also very, very active in class discussion, and he's made it that course and the last one a real pleasure. So Radwan, congratulations.
Thank you, Professor Troyansky, especially to all the professors I've had leading up until this point. I can say I came into this feeling suffering a bit from imposter syndrome, thinking that I didn't do much to get this far, but I can only say not only am I proud of myself that I made it here, but I'm also proud of everyone else here that I recognize. And it's honestly been such a great opportunity to see everybody receive awards for their work. And I can only hope that I can reach that same level eventually, you know. Thank you again. This means so much to me.
So our next award is the Core 4 Book Award, which has 3 recipients this year. So we're going to start out with Professor Mencia and Jean-Michel.
All right. So I caught wind of Jean-Michel's greatness last year when other professors were talking about him. So I was quite excited. We haven't acknowledged yet that the awards ceremony also makes many of us jealous who haven't had you in class. So I will put in a pitch for those of you who haven't taken some of us. You should sign up for some of us in the fall because we want to have you. So that's how I felt with Jean-Michel last year. And so I was quite excited to see his name on my medieval history roster in the fall. And Jean-Michel did not disappoint. He lived up to expectations and exceeded them. What I see in Jean-Michel, in addition to being a fabulous student, a writer, and an intellectual, is that he is a deeply creative thinker. Last fall, JM created a virtual exhibition for our class on the value of labor across the Middle Ages. And in his exhibition, he noted that the correlation between workers' freedoms and capitalism are weak in the modern era. So he turned to the pre-modern era to understand if, in the absence of capitalism, there were more freedoms for workers. And using contracts, literature, saints' lives, and jongleur song texts from the medieval period, JM concluded that workers' agency wasn't unique to the modern era, and that periods of class conflict in the nascent sort of medieval period, the nascent capitalist sort of medieval period, actually allowed for workers to negotiate their roles a bit before classes became more calcified in the modern era. So the way he got to this conclusion was insightful in and of itself. The conclusion was insightful in and of itself, but the way he got there was the real treat. Every artifact and source was surprising and thoughtful and well explained. So that was a joy. And then this spring in 2021, JM has been the intern for the history department. And in addition to curating our social media accounts, he invented our virtual lounge on the Discord server. And so he has therefore been key to bringing all of our students together during COVID. And I would be remiss not to mention JM's great March Madness campaign in March, where he pitted historical periods against each other and grew our social media following and rallied our student community to get excited about history, even on Zoom, and allowed the Middle Ages to emerge as the March Madness champion, fact for which I will forever be in his debt. But in all seriousness, Jean-Michel, I thank you for all that you've done for our department, and I thank you for being such an important presence in our classes and outside of them both. So thank you.
Thanks for this award. I don't really know what to say aside from I'm just glad I get to be part of this department. And I'm sorry other professors who lost March Madness this year. Like, it wasn't my fault, basically. Congratulations to everyone else who's here today.
Our next recipient of the Core 4 Book Award is Jonathan, and Professor O'Keefe is going to be introducing him.
Good evening, everybody. It's my great pleasure and honor to present this award to Jonathan. And I just wanted to say that one of the reasons why I nominated Jonathan for this award is the same reason why I nominated other recipients for awards this evening, and the same reason that other students, even who I know I haven't taught, but who I've heard wonderful things about, have been nominated and have received these awards. And that is to say that Jonathan arrives to class every day with a generosity of spirit and a real willingness to kind of share special insights and curiosities and questions with the rest of the room. And for those of you who are in the Russian and Soviet history course this semester, you know that Jonathan has been especially generous in sharing with the class insights that he has to offer because he understands himself, as he explained in one of his recent reading responses, as a, quote, Soviet American. So we have all benefited from learning about his great uncle, who was named Victory on Victory Day to celebrate Soviet victory in World War II. And we've also kind of gained a whole kind of litany of other insights that Jonathan has brought to the table. But what some of the other students who are in that class don't know, but that I know, and that others who teach Jonathan know, is that he is an absolutely out of this world, talented, gorgeous, beautiful writer. I think I've been teaching at Brooklyn College since 2009. And I would say that hands down, Jonathan is the most talented writer I've ever taught. And so I hope he'll forgive me for this, but I wanted to kind of share with the room one snippet from the first reading response that Jonathan submitted to me this semester. My apologies to all the students whom I've taught who will remember me always for assigning them too many reading responses. But this was the first reading response, and it was about Turgenev's Fathers and Sons. And I remember when I opened the email and I started reading, it was one of those moments where I really kind of had to hold on because I thought for real that I might fall off my chair. This was such an exceptional response, both with its thoughtfulness, but also, again, just the kind of beautiful writing style. So these are Jonathan's words. It is shortly revealed that Bazarov cut himself on accident during the autopsy and had been infected with typhus, which eventually would kill him. Reading this, I couldn't help but to think of previous discussions about Alexander II's reforms and how they could be seen as a sort of autopsy. Alexander II saw his work as surgery to heal a dying system while also giving it new medicine in order for it to get better. Though, unbeknownst to him, he wasn't performing surgery, but an autopsy. He's a doctor trying to heal a dead patient. Ultimately, all he tries to do ends up in his own downfall. Like Bazarov, he is buried with the patient. This cannot be an intentional symbol, but it's an interesting one to ponder. To Turgenev, the answer is clear, but it raises the questions. What must Russia keep and what must it let go for it to be fixed? Can it be fixed and preserve the autocracy at the same time, as we have discussed? Or will it be like Bazarov, risking its life for a corpse? There's one more thing I want to say, since I have the opportunity, a kind of special thank you to Jonathan. Jonathan is a student in the class who has the option to keep his camera on or off, right, as all students do, but he has a camera, and most of the time Jonathan chooses to keep it on. And I take this, Jonathan, also as an act of generosity on your part. For those of us, when we're teaching on Zoom, it can be a very dehumanizing experience. And I remember one moment this semester in particular where I wondered, am I just talking to a wall? And I was kind of looking at my, my computer, and I was mostly seeing like the checkerboard of colors and names. And I kept going, but in a kind of flash that Jonathan will never understand how much it meant to me. I saw his whole kind of face light up with this kind of light bulb moment of understanding and appreciation. So Jonathan, I want to thank you for that as well. And I see that as a kind of symbol of your generosity and engagement in classes as a whole. So congratulations, Jonathan.
Well, thank you so much. I can't help but to say I'm also kind of feeling a little bit of imposter syndrome, but honestly, it means so much, and we understand, students understand, as much as you guys understand how it's hard to discuss over Zoom given the situation, especially such a complex topic as history or Russian history, let alone Russian history. But overall, thank you so much, and it really means a lot.
And our final in the Core 4 book award will be to not get introduced by Professor Napoli.
Well, good evening, everybody. And like all of my colleagues have said, I want to say thank you to family and friends that are here, to all of our students. I want to say one thing that out loud that we've all tried. We miss you people. It's hard for us to express how badly we would love to be in person with you, sharing the enthusiasm we feel for our topics in that way that would be much more normal and honestly, much more satisfying for all of us. This has been an exceptionally difficult time, and we're grateful that you've stuck it out. I mean, this is hard. We know this is hard. So let me turn to the celebration that we have here. I'm here to speak about Natig, and I let me just offer these thoughts. I've had Natig in 2 of my classes so far. One is oral history in the fall and American popular culture this spring. I know Natig to be an exceptionally conscientious student of history who respects people of all backgrounds, at least in part because of the complexity of his own. He wrote to me last year, "I come from a very diverse and complicated ethnic, cultural, and religious background. I've traveled a lot and witnessed such things as earthquakes and volcano eruptions with my own eyes." Natig brings that experience as gifts to the classroom that we use almost every day, even quite literally today. We were, every time, I borrowed this from Professor Wills, my students act as DJs before class. So we open the class at 15 or 20 minutes before, and students can play whatever they want to hear. It's a class in popular culture, right? So Natig actually invites us to listen to 1967 Soviet jazz, and it was wonderful, right? I mean, quite literally, those gifts he gives to us on a daily basis. As a historian, Natig is persuaded that interpretive context is central. This is key to my view of writing history too. In a paper about one of his interviewees' reaction to the 2020 Nagorno-Karabakh war, he writes, "To analyze in detail the transformation process of my interviewee's life and my interpretation of that experience, I consider it essential to provide chronological information about the war's background and the conflicting country's history." He knows what has to be done in order to make sense of anybody's life experience. His final project for my oral history class dealt with the immigrants from the former USSR and their attitudes both toward the United States and their home country in a 17-minute podcast that combines music and interview content and insightful analysis. It was wonderful. Oral history is an archival practice as much as it is an interpretive one, and Natig's practice was perfection. Oral history archiving is complicated, kind of difficult, certainly exacting, and Natig does it perfectly. It matters a lot because if you don't know where the information is, you can't find it, and you must create records and maintain them. He does it flawlessly. So what I'm saying is that Natig absorbed the essential components of the oral history methodology, but most especially he internalized the injunction that a historian's most important tools are emotional empathy coupled with a hunger for verifiable historical facts. As he writes, basically as a historian, we should try to be moral and focus on the narrative's historically important features while identifying critical interpretive opportunities. And who could disagree? That's exactly it. That's what we do. Lastly, let me say in terms of my oral history class last fall, it was the most enjoyable teaching experience I have probably had in the last decade. And it's not in small part due to Natig and Xander and Devora, who were all present in this room. They operated in a fashion to give me themselves. Oral history, as I teach it, is very much a workshop class. You go do something, you bring it back, and we work on it. That means you are permitting yourself to be vulnerable on an emotional level and regularly, right? This is part and parcel of what we're doing. So they go out and do their practice interviews and they bring them in. And one of the students, and I think it might have actually been Devora, brings in an interview and does, puts it on, and we listen to 2 or 3 minutes. And Natig's response was, "I need to say something," before anybody else had spoken. And my colleagues know, as a teacher, you're terrified. This can go 2 ways. This can be awful, or this can be, anyway. So what Natig says is, and this is a direct quotation, said, "That was beautiful." And honest to God, I went, this is going to work. Because if I can get one of the senior students in the room, Natig's after his 2nd degree, if I can get him to offer himself in that way, everybody's going to win. And we did. It was a blast, and it continued throughout the whole semester. Right at the end of the semester, we play our podcasts and whatnot, and he does the exact same thing. This is what makes teaching work: is when our students reciprocate that generosity that each one brings to the room. Natig was perfect. I adore him, having him in class. I want him all the time. And if I got my way, you couldn't have him. Natig, congratulations.
Thank you very much, Professor. I just want to say a couple of words. I mean, this is my second time attending this award ceremony. I don't know if it's going to be there going to be a third one or not, but I want to say a couple of words about each professor that I know. So first of all, Professor Napoli is a teacher and storyteller and an administrative counselor and an educator experimenting with innovative methods. I mean, orchestra man, what I learned from him. What I loved about him is that he's responsive and available 24/7. Thank you for that, especially during the pandemic chaos. I learned so much about American popular culture that I can easily go to Chicago or New Orleans and show off my knowledge of jazz and blues history now. Last year I had an oral history class, as you mentioned, a completely new skill that I added to my LinkedIn interviewing skill. Now I have it there. Thank you very much, Professor. And then I want to say a couple words about Professor Banerjee. She was my professor for the fundamental course, 2001, about historiography, and her area of expertise was feminism. Exciting tandem. We had only one girl in the class, and Professor Banerjee managed to convince all of us men to learn the historiography roots through the prism of feminism. That was a great experience. She taught us how to teach, and that's an exceptional skill I got. Professor Troyansky is here. He made me love France and understand that French Revolution is such a significant turning point in history that you can easily divide the whole human history into two parts, like pre-revolutionary and post-revolutionary. And his autobiographical stories about his own research experience in French villages were genuinely astonishing, memorable. Thank you very much for that. Professor O'Keefe is just a sunshine of the whole department, as I remember. Her energy, way of lecturing, excitement level, and inspirational intonation is out of this world. We both admired Trotsky, and I loved when she commented on my assignments in Russian. I was born in USSR, also Jonathan, but I learned so much new things from her. I don't forget how I was amazed when the Chernobyl series became a global phenomenon just a month after Professor O'Keefe made us read a book that was the almanac for that TV show. By the way, today is the commemoration day of that. Professor O'Keefe, thank you for being such an inspirational figure in my educational period. Spasiba. I'm not graduating yet, so I'm very excited to know other professors in the department. Once again, thank you very much, and I appreciate giving me this award.
So our next award is the Raskin Dawson Award, and we have two recipients here. We're going to start with Professor Remy, who will introduce Emily Marquez.
Thank you, Professor Johnson, and congratulations to everyone, to you, the recipients, and to your families and friends. I'll just say quickly, congratulations also medievalists for March Madness, and by that I mean March Madness was stolen. But let me get on to the awardee. It's a great pleasure to present this award to Emily Marquez. Emily enrolled in two of my electives, fortunately for me and for her classmates. The first was an elective, History 3360. That's main currents in contemporary world history, which means that, well, it means I can do really all kinds of things. And in this case, I had students develop their own projects in whatever formats they wanted to pursue. I'm very pleased to see both, not just Emily, but also Xander Raff and Stephen here, who took that course. And from a very early point, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, Emily was not yet a fully committed history major at that point, because I remember thinking very I remember very distinctly from the early point in the semester thinking, we have got to get this student as a history major. And I hope I didn't lay it on too thick at the time. If I had anything to do with you becoming a history major, then, well, that's, I'm very happy about that. Emily produced a podcast series on beauty standards, Western beauty standards, and takes and offshoots on that. And I'll just say this. I echo my colleagues that really the greatest joy and reward as a teacher is to learn from your students. Okay, but as far as Emily's project was concerned, I not only learned things, but I was challenged and provoked at a very deep level by what you produced. And I thank you for that. And I would also add, I think that you have a particular talent for podcasts and for interviewing. So Terry Gross and Allison Stewart, watch out. I would love it if you embraced the format further. I think you have a real talent for it. So I am lucky to have had you as a student in 2 of my electives. And though I do hope to see you in another class, I do agree with Professor Mancia that we should share our riches. Congratulations and best wishes.
I just wanted to, I'm shy, sorry. But I just wanted to say thank you, Professor, for your kind words. And I'm actually really honored that you and like other professors here felt that I deserved to be nominated for something like this. I was really surprised when I got the email. And I'm actually really glad I decided to make the decision to pursue history since I took some time off to like really decide what I really wanted to do. So I'm really glad I did that. And I'm really glad I decided to come to Brooklyn College because I appreciate the work of the department and all the professors that I've had so far because my experience here so far has been really, really amazing. And that would not have been possible without you guys. So yeah.
All right, and the other recipient of the Raskin Dawson Award, the sensational Joseph Gonzalez, who will be introduced by Professor Meyer.
Hello, everyone. Thank you all for coming. Congratulations to everyone who's receiving awards. When I reached out to Joe and I asked him what drew him to the study of history, he told me that what really fascinated him was looking at the world from the perspective of other times, other places, other cultures. And this is kind of borne out by my experience with him. I've only had Joe in one class, but he took my Revolutionary China class. He's an outstanding writer, a deliberate and careful thinker. His early work was very good. But despite all of that, you know, when he said that he was, when I saw that he was going to do a research paper on the Opium War, I was filled with trepidation. And those of you who've heard me whinge about my teaching experience know why this is so. The Opium War is one of these entrenched shibboleths in European and American historiography of 19th century China. I'm reading this book by Graham Allison now, in which he repeats the whole thing. I'll read to you. Forgive me for using some of Joe's time. Don't go buy the book. But this is a bestseller. This was published in 2017. Millennia of Chinese dominance ended abruptly in the first half of the 19th century when the Qing dynasty came face to face with the power of an industrializing imperial Western Europe. You can't get away from that. And I no matter how much I plead with students not to buy that, it's just being sold too broadly. So when I read Joe's paper, I was so gratified to see an undergraduate dealing with this period and these issues critically, incisively, comparatively, looking at things not only from the sort of countervailing perspectives of the British and the Qing, but also with a sensitivity to the fact that we're talking about the 19th century from the perspective of the 21st. It was a really outstanding piece of historical writing. and showed a real talent. And when I learned from Joe that he aspires to a career as a teacher of history, that he's also in the education program, I was doubly pleased, because I think that he obviously has a talent for this kind of work. And I look forward to someday to greeting him as a colleague. So congratulations, Joe, and congratulations, and enjoy a well-earned reward.
Thank you. Those are some nice words. I guess I'll just say everybody I've taken in the department has been pretty great. I've been happy with everybody, and I'm really glad that I could be a part of the department, just because, I mean, not only the subject's great, but I mean, the professors are great too.
Thank you. So our next to last award is the Rudolph Award. Professor Mancia will do the honors for Hamza.
Okay. Hamza. I first met Hamza in the History Lounge in Boylan during a history department event. And I was impressed then. I had never had him in class, but I was impressed then by his passion for Middle Eastern history and his conviction when speaking about the Palestinian cause. And when he showed up in my fall medieval history class this semester, I learned just how amazing he is as a student and as a person. So even in a Zoom environment, Hamza is always thinking. His thoughts, the apparentness of his thoughts are just seeping through the Zoom screen. His wheels are always turning. He always has something amazing to say in class or on paper. And there are two moments of Hamza in class that I will really, really never forget. I think that I will always, when I look at these books, when I look at these lessons, I will always think of him. One was when we were beginning to talk about medieval troubadour song and the thesis that these songs were the beginning of romantic love in the West. And at one point in that class, Hamza stopped our conversation with an impassioned confession. And he admitted that he had come to this course, to the medieval history course, with preconceived notions about the European Middle Ages being underdeveloped scientifically, and that he therefore assumed that medieval people were not as developed as human beings. But after reading these troubadour songs, he was converted. He was impressed with the depth of emotion, with the resonance of medieval love language, and was dumbfounded in a good way by the ways that medieval Romance literature translated into the medieval expression of a love for God. And that kind of honest admission revealed his capacities for change and the real desire to learn that he has. And my second Hamza moment is a moment when we were talking about early medieval law codes, regulating basic things like roof repairs of synagogues in early Christian Europe in order to assert the new Christian hegemony in medieval Europe. And Hamza raised his hand and drew a connection between these laws in the past and the laws that one sees at work today in Israel regulating Palestinian buildings. And that connection was so apt, and the irony of the historical transformation of hegemony was so elegantly put that I will always remember it. And I thank Hamza for his passion, for his honesty, for his drive, and for these memories. And I can't wait to see what he does as a chef or a restaurateur or a teacher or anything, anywhere he ends up in the future. So congratulations.
Thank you very much, Professor Mancia. I was considering what I would say, but I owe so many of the professors here so much, so I'm going to give my own reverse awards, if you will. In keeping with how extra I am as a student, I don't think this should surprise anybody who's had me in their class before. Let's start with Professor Meyer. This is my first semester taking your class, and I jumped right into the colloquium. And I couldn't be happier with my decision. I give you the award of biggest mirror. I have a feeling like I would be a lot like you the day that I get my PhD, and that I would teach my class very similarly to how you do. I remember in class when we were talking about ancient China, so of course I wanted to talk about the Lord of the Rings. And I had asked you,
are you familiar with it, right? And you said something along the lines of, do you know who I am? Of course I know Lord of the Rings, right? And that, I identify as a massive nerd, and I really, really appreciated that from you. And so you have the Best Mirror Award. Professor Rossen, I've only had one class with you, and I give you the Most Mysterious Award. I spent the entire semester really not knowing what you thought of me, right, as a student. Maybe that's my own fault, I don't know. But then at the end of that semester, you presented my award, and I was frankly shocked. I didn't expect it to be you, and I didn't expect you to say so many kind words about me. So thank you for that. You are the most mysterious. Professor Fishman, I can't see him here today, but he can watch this video. I give him the Coolest Teacher and Best Friend Award. If I had the choice to go out for drinks with any professor, I would definitely choose Professor Fishman. He's a professor on every level, but he's also somebody that I can relate to more than anybody else in here. He helps, my identity is reflected in him, and I would definitely be his friend tomorrow. Professor Mancia, I give you the Most Kind and Supportive Award, and this is for a variety of reasons, but I think you got this award because you also used to be a teacher. And if there's something that I know that you bring to class, it's your empathy and your kindness and your supportiveness, and that allows me to step out of my comfort zone routinely. If you told me that I would run and curate an exhibit on 8 pieces of middle-age art, I've called you a liar because I don't know anything about art. And I chose to also be an education major because I thought that knowledge would help bring, skill and empathy towards the job of being a professor. I'd originally wanted to get my PhD. And your class was a case study in how being a teacher can transform, the class that you have as a professor. And thank you so much for that experience. Professor O'Keefe, you get the Most Passionate and Infectious Award. It takes all about 10 seconds in your class to be, filled with this incredible passion and excitement for whatever it is that you're teaching. If I had brought a rock with me to class, the rock would be able to tell you all things about this, Soviet history that you yourself have taught us. And finally, Professor Johnson, where do I start, right? I'm taking you right now in my last semester here at Brooklyn College, and I had you my first semester at Brooklyn College 2 years ago. And to say that I had absolutely zero confidence in my academic abilities coming into Brooklyn College would be an understatement. My GPA was like a 2.3 or something. I had come from Hunter. I had taken a year off. I really had no idea what I was going to do with myself. And yeah, I took US in the Middle East with you, and it was an incredible class. And at the end of the semester, you emailed me back my final grade, and you had kept a little note in there, and you said, it was a pleasure having you all class. You've done excellent all semester. And I referred, but I still read that email till today. Years afterwards, I still go back to that. To you, I award my Favorite Professor Award. This is the highest honor. This is the best picture of the night. So thank you very much. I would not be a history major if I hadn't walked into your class that day. So thank you, everybody. I think everybody in the history department has a unique ability to make me care about something that I had never thought that I would care about just by reading the title alone. That's something all of you share together, and I think that's what makes the history department here so incredible. So thank you.
Thank you for the kind words, Hamza. I'm lucky that I still have you for a few more weeks, which is very nice. So our final award this evening is the Cole Award, which goes to Miriam. Miriam, you had the unfortunate effect of being introduced by me, which means you had to be the last one to be introduced. I've had Miriam for multiple classes, and I think that it took me around a week and a half of teaching Miriam to figure out that this was a person who was both just amazingly smart and almost stunningly well prepared. You know, every single class came to class very well prepared and remarkably diverse in her talent. So I had her in the constitutional history class. She does just a great job of arguing what is a tough case on the Masterpiece Cake Shop case, where one of the keys, I do this assignment all the time in my constitutional history class, where the course will end with a moot court, and the students really have to not just get a sense of how to argue their case, but to appreciate the weaknesses in their side. And Miriam had an ability to do that. That's quite rare, but I think you sort of testified to her skills. And the last time that I taught Miriam was last spring, so it's in the middle of the pandemic, and this was as we all recall, this utterly chaotic semester where we were forced to change gears literally in the middle of the semester. And this was a course I would like to say that I sort of kept that course afloat, but really that was a course that was kept afloat by a handful of students who just sort of, who kept it alive. A couple of whom are here tonight, in addition to Marian Hamza and Joe, and also Nolan Frontero graduated last year. And Miriam's approach by that point didn't surprise me. This is a student who is a student of really extraordinary generosity in a variety of ways, that she shares her intellect with her fellow students, but she brings her best to the class, and she elevates any class that she's in. So, you know, I'm delighted to see that she's considering going to graduate school, and she's a very worthy recipient of the Cole Award.
Thank you so much, Professor Johnson. I'm looking forward to joining the History MA program in the fall of 2022. So I'm really excited to take classes with everyone. Thank you much, Professor Johnson. Your class was the first class that I took as a prospective history major. It was the first semester of my sophomore year, and I was kind of debating, should I do history education? Should I do English education? And I was like, why don't I just enroll some history classes and see how it goes? So I pulled up CUNY first, and I looked through all the history classes, and I was like, I want to take all of them. So I settled down to Professor O'Keefe's class, and I took Professor Johnson's American Constitutional History class. They were both amazing, and I never looked back after that. So the next year, I'm going to stay in my undergrad. I'm going to be becoming a second degree student. I'm going to be taking a lot more history undergrad courses that I never got a chance to take. And then we're going to start the MA program. And thank you so much to everyone.
Well, with that, I believe that we're going to adjourn. Many thanks, first of all, to all of the presenters. Realize that this is an incredibly busy time of the semester, and on behalf of the department, congratulations to all of the recipients. This has been, you've heard it from many people so far, an extraordinarily difficult year, and the ability of all of you to not just sort of keep with the program, but to excel in these incredibly challenging times is a remarkable accomplishment, and one of which I hope and I think you all should be very, very proud. Study hard for your finals. Good luck on your final projects, and congratulations again.